ever book again. Sorry about not posting again. You know, I've found time to read. Well, I have time to read, but I've been doing a lot of math and stuff. You know, unfortunately, I have class and stuff, and also I want to be lazy and procrastinate. I believe we left off on chapter 1. Let's take a look. Where? We're on chapter, no, where's chapter 1? Is this it? No, we're almost there. Hold on 1 second. Alright, before we start, there's gonna be noise in the background. I live in a small house, and I'm not rich. So, if you came for like the most beautiful experience, you're not gonna find it. Alright, let me get comfortable. Alright, chapter 1. Bucky startled awake. Fear prickling in his bones and fur. He leapt to his feet, growling. For an instant he thought he was tiny once more, safe in his pup pack and protected. But the comforting dream had already vanished. The air shivered with menace, tingling Lucky's skin. If only you could see what was coming. He could face it down, but the monster was invisible, scentless. He whined in terror. This is no sleep time story. The fear was real. The urge to run was almost unbearable, but he could only scrabble, snarl, and scratch in panic. There was nowhere to go. The wire of his cage hemmed in on him every side. His muzzle hurt when he tried to shove it through the gaps. When he backed away, snarling, the same wire bit into his haunches. Others were close. Familiar bodies, familiar scents. Those dogs were enclosed in this terrible place, just as he was. Lucky raised his head and barked, over and over, high and desperate. It was clear no dog could help him. Voices drowned out by the chorus of frantic calls. They were all trapped. Dark panic overwhelmed him. His claws scrabbled at the earth floor, even though he knew it was hopeless. He could smell the female swift dog in the next cage, a friendly, comforting scent overlaid, now with the bitter tang of danger and fear. Yipping, he pressed closer, feeling the shiver in her muscles, but the wire still separated them. Sweet, something's on its way, something bad. Yes, I feel it. What's happening? The long paws. Where were they? The long paws held them captive in the trap house, but they had always seemed to care about the dogs. They brought food and water. They laid bedding and cleaned the mess. Surely the long paws would come for them now. The others barked and howled as one, and Lucky raised his voice with theirs. Long paws, it's coming. Something shifted beneath them, making his cage tremble. In a sudden, terrible silence, Lucky crouched, frozen with horror. Ooh. Then, around and above him, chaos erupted. The unforeseen monster was here, and its paws were right on the trap house. Lucky was flung back against the wire as the world heaved and tilted. For agonizing moments, he didn't know which way was up or down. The monster tumbled him around, deafening him with the racket of falling rock and shattering clear stone. His vision went dark as clouds of filth blinded him. The screaming, yelping of terrified dogs seemed to fill his skull. A great chunk of wool crashed off the wire and... Sorry, my phone's low. The screaming, yelping howls of terrified dogs seemed to fill his skull. A great chunk of wool crashed off the wire in front of his nose, and Lucky leaped back. Was the earth dog trying to take him? Then, just as suddenly as the monster had come, it disappeared. One more wall crashed down, and a cloud of choking dust. Torn wires screeched as a high cage toppled, then plummeted to the earth. There was only silence and dank metal set. Blood, thought Lucky. Death. Panic stirred inside his belly again. He was lying on his side. The wire crumpled against him, and he thrashed his strong legs, trying to right himself. Cage rattled. I can't see, I'm sorry. The cage rattled and rocked, but he couldn't get up. No, he thought, I'm trapped. Lucky, are you alright? Sweet, where are you? Her long face pushed at his through the mangled wire. My cage door, it broke when it fell. I thought I was dead, Lucky. I'm free, but you... Help me, Sweet. The other faint whimpers had stopped. But did that mean the other dogs were? No, Lucky could not let himself think about that. He howled just to break the silence. I think I can pull the cage out a bit, said Sweet. Your door is loose, too. You might be able to get it open. Seizing the wire with her teeth, she tugged. Lucky fought to keep himself calm. All he wanted to do was fling himself against the cage until it broke. His hind legs kicked out wildly, and he craned his head around, snapping at the wire. Sweet was gradually pulling the cage forward, stopping occasionally to scrabble at the fallen stones with her paws. There, and Susana, wait while but Lucky could wait no longer. The cage door was torn at the upper corner, and he twisted until he could bite and claw at it. He worked his paw into the gap and pulled hard. Though the wire gave out the screech, just as Lucky felt a piercing stab at his paw pad. But the door now hung at an awkward angle, wriggling and squirming. He pulled himself free and stood upright at last. His tail was tight between his legs as tremors bolted through his skin and muscles. He and Sweet stared at the carnage and chaos around them. There were broken cages and broken bodies. A small, smooth-coated dog lay on the ground nearby, lifeless, eyes dull. Beneath the last that wall had fallen. Nothing stirred but a limp paw poked from between the stones. The scent of death was already spreading to the trap house air. Sweet began to whimper with grief. What was that? What happened? I think. Lucky's voice shook, and he tried again. It was a growl. My mother dog used to tell me stories about the earth dog and the growl she sent. I think the monster was a big growl. We have to get away from her. There was terrors in Sweet's whine. Yes, Lucky backed away slowly, shaking his head to dispel the death smell, but it followed him, clinging to his nostrils. He glanced around, desperate. The wall had tumbled onto the dog's cages. The broken blocks had collapsed into a pile, and light shone bright through the haze of dust and smoke. There, Sweet, where the stones had crumbled in. Come on. She needed no more urging, leaping over the rubble. Aware of his wounded paw, and Lucky picked his way more carefully, nervously glancing around for a long pause. Surely they'd come when they saw the destruction. He shuddered and quickened his pace. But even when he sprang down to the street outside, following Sweet's lead, there was no sign of any long pause. Bewildered, he paused, sniffed the air. It smelled so strange. Let's get away from the trap house, he told Sweet in a low voice. I don't know what's happened, but we should go far in case the long paws come back. Sweet gave a sharp whine as her head drooped. Lucky, I don't think there's any long paws left. Their journey was slow and silent except for the distant wail of broken log cages. A sense of threat grew in Lucky's belly. So many of the roads and alleys he knew were blocked. Still, he persevered, nosing his way around the broken buildings through tangled, snaking coils torn from the ground. Despite what Sweet thought, Lucky was sure the long paws would return soon. He wanted to be far away from the destroyed trap house when they did. The sky was darkening by the time he felt safe to rest. Lucky sniffed away that Lucky sensed anyway that Sweet couldn't go much further. Maybe swift dogs weren't as good as long journeys as they were at quick dashes. He gazed back the way they'd come, shadows lengthening across the ground, hiding spaces, emerging in dark corners. Lucky shivered. Which other animals might be out there, scared and hungry? They were both exhausted from escaping the big growl. Sweet barely managed to tread her ritual sleep circle before she slumped to the ground, laid her head on her forepaws, and closed her troubled eyes. Lucky pressed himself close to her flank for warmth and comfort. I'll stay awake for a while, he thought. Keep watch. Yes. He woke with a start, shivering and his heart racing. He'd slept no sound away. His dreams were full of distant rumbling of big ground, an endless line of long paws running away from him, and loud cages whining and beeping. There were no sign of others here now. The city seemed abandoned. Beneath the thorny scrub, Sweet slept on, the flanks of her sleek body gently rising and falling with each breath. Interesting. Something about Sweet's deep sleep was comforting. Okay, Lucky's a pervert, he thought. But suddenly he needed more than the scented warmth of her sleeping body. He needed her awake and alert. He nuzzled Sweet's long face, licking her ears, and she responded with a happy, murmuring growl. She got to her feet, sniffing and licking him in return. How's that paw, Lucky? Her words instantly brought the stink back. Remembering the wound, he sniffed at his paw pad. An angry red mark scored the flesh, pulsing with pain. He licked it gently. It was closed, but only just, and he didn't want to make it bleed again. It's better, I think, he said, more hopefully than he felt. Then, as they both slunk out from beneath the dense branches, his spirits slumped. The road before them was broken, wildly tinted and cracked. Water sprayed into the sky from a long tube exposed by crumbling earth, making rainbows in the air. It wasn't just there. On the sloping city streets, as far as Lucky could see, the light of the rising sun glinted on tangled metal. A slick of water Everybody remembered that there had once been gardens. The Longpaw homes, they used to seem tall and indestructible, were now crumbled as if plummeted by a giant Longpaw fist. The big girl murmured sweet, awestruck and afraid. What that could be, this book is so old. It's disgusting though. Catch my breath. Alright, look what it's done, Lucky shivered. You were right about the Longpaws. There are packs and packs of them. Now I don't see a single one. He cocked his ears and tasted the air with his tongue. Dust and under-earth stink. No fresh scents. Even the loud cages aren't moving. Lucky tilted his head towards one of them, tipped onto its side, its snout half buried in a collapsed wall, like gleam from its metal flanks, but there was no roar and rumble. It seemed dead. Sweet looked startled. I wonders what those were for. What did you call it? Lucky gave her a doubtful look. She didn't even know what a loud cage was. Loud cages? You know, Longpaws use them to get around. They can't run as fast as we can. He couldn't believe she didn't know the most basic detail about Longpaws. It gave him a bad feeling about setting out with them. Sweet's and Yvette wouldn't be much help when they were trying to survive. Lucky sniffed the air again. The city's new smell made him uneasy. There was a rottenness, lingering whiff of death and danger. It doesn't smell like home for dogs anymore, he thought. He padded over to see where the water sprayed from it in the wounded earth. Sunken hole, there was an oily lake, its surface shimmering with rainbow colors. Gas leak. It gave off an odd smell that Lucky didn't like, but he's drinking gas. Or oil. I forgot what it's called, honestly. He was thirsty to care and lapped at the water greedily, doing his best to ignore the foul taste. Beside him, he saw Sweet's reflection as she also drank. So is this the part where they die? Let's find out. She was the first to lift her dripping muzzle, licking her pointed chops. It's too quiet, she remembered. We need to get out of this Longpaw town. Sweet's fur lifted. We should go to the hills. Find a wild place. We're safe here as anywhere else, said Lucky. You can use the old Longpaw houses, maybe find food. And there are plenty of hiding places, believe me. Plenty of places for other things to hide, she retorted, bristling. I don't like it. What do you have to be scared of? Her legs looked long enough to race through the high grasses, and her frame was slender and light. I bet you could run faster than anything. Not in corners, I can't. She glanced nervously to left and right. The sea has a lot of corners. I need a place to run. That's where I can pick up speed. Lucky scanned the area too. She was right. The buildings. Alright. Let me look. The buildings look crowded in on them. Maybe she had a good reason to be edgy. Let's at least keep moving. Some of those Longpaws still might be close by, whether we can see them or not. I don't want to go back to the trap house. Me neither, Sweet agreed, her lip curling to show her strong white teeth. Why is he always glazing, Sweet? We should start looking for more dogs. We need a good, strong pack. Lucky's muzzle wrinkled in doubt. It was not a pack dog. He had never understood what there was so like about living with a big mama dogs, all dependent on one another, having to submit to an alpha. He didn't need anyone else. And the last thing he wanted was someone who needed his. Just the thought of allowing another dogs made his skin prickle. Obviously that is not how Sweet feels, he thought. She was enthusiastic now, rattling off stories. But I loved my pack. We ran together, hunted together, catching rabbits and chasing rats. She became more subdued and looking longingly towards the outskirts of the wrecked town. And the Longpaws came and spoiled everything. Lucky couldn't help responding to the sadness in her voice. What happened? Sweet shook herself. They rounded us up. So many of them. And all in the same brown fur. Staying together, that's what got us trapped. But her growth grew fierce. You wouldn't leave a single dog behind. That's pack law. We stuck together in good times and bad. Sweet paused, her eyes distant, unable to repress an unhappy whimper. The pack was with you in the trap house, murmured Lucky sympathetically. Yes, she came to an abrupt halt. Wait, Lucky, you have to go back. He darted in front of her as she spun around, blocking her way. No, Sweet. We have to. Lucky scrambled sideways to stop her from slipping past him. They're my packmates. I can't leave until I find what's happened to them, if any of them are still. No, Sweet, Lucky barked. You saw how I was in that place. But we might have missed Sweet. He tried a gentler tone, tentatively licking her unhappy face. Back there, it's ruined. They're all dead. Gone to the earth dog. And we can't hang around here. The Longpaws might come back. That seemed to convince her. Sweet glanced over her shoulder. Oh, this is hurting my back. I hope this chapter's over soon. All for you guys there. Alright. Once more, then turned away again. With a deep sigh, she began to walk on. Lucky tried to show his relief. He walked close beside her, their flanks brushing with every second step. Did you have friends in the trap house too? Sweet asked. Me? Said Lucky lightly, trying to cheer up. No, thanks, I'm a lone dog. Sweet gave him an odd glance. There's no such thing. Every dog needs a pack. Not me. I like being on my own. I mean, sure, a pack's best for some dogs, he added hurriedly to spare her feelings. But I've walked alone since I left my pup pack. You can repress the proud lift of his head. I could look after myself. There's no better place for a dog than the city. I'll show you. There's food for the finding, and warm crane to sleep in, and shelter from the rain. But is that still true? For a moment he hesitated, letting his eyes rove over the smashed streets and shattered walls and broken clear stones, the tilting roads and abandoned loud cages. This isn't safe, Lucky thought. We need to get out of here as soon as we can. Not that he was going to share that fear with Sweet. She was already so anxious. If only there was some distraction. There. Lucky gave a high bark of excitement. They turned a corner, and right in the road was another wreck. Lucky scented food. He broke into a run, leaping into light onto the side of the huge overturned metal box. He'd seen long paws throwing things they didn't want to eat, locking them afterwards so that Lucky was never able to feast on unwanted food. Now the box was on its side, the half-floating contents spilled out across the ground. Black crows were hopping and jabbing around the piles. Lucky held his high and barked as loud as he could. The crows cawed, alarmed as they half fluttered away. Come on, he yelled, springing into the stinking pile. Sweet followed, barking happily. As Lucky nosed his way through the mound of scraps, he heard the dull fluttering of wings as the crows ascended again. He leapt and snapped his jaws at an indignant bird and darted into the air, its wings beating strongly. Lucky sent a final snarl after the departing crow as he landed back on the ground, his paws skidding in the dirt. Immediately, his wounded paw howled pain. It's like the fangs of the most vicious dog, biting all the way up his leg. He couldn't hold back a whimper of distress. As Sweet dashed across the cloud of crows, chasing them clear, Lucky sat down and licked the herd away. He eagerly sniffed the air, enjoying the scent coming off the piles of discarded items that spilled across the ground. Contentment began to settle over him, and he was distracted from his pain. Let me get a little comfy. For a while, the mood lingered as Lucky and Sweet snuffed out the delicacies the crows had left. Sweet pulled chicken bones from the cardboard bucket, and Lucky found a crust of bread. The pickings were poor, especially after they'd worked up such an appetite. We're going to starve in the city, Sweet whined. Looking an empty box that once held some food, she pinned it down with one paw. She poked her nose inside. I promise you won't. It's not all scavenging. Lucky's mind was flooded with an image of a place he used to visit. He nudged Sweet's flank affectionately. Take you somewhere we'll eat like leash dogs. This guy's a pervert. Holy shit. Sweet's ears pricked up. Really? Really? This place will change your mind about cities. Lucky trotted confidently down the road, his mouth already watering at the prospect of food. Sweet was right behind him. It was strange how happy he was with her company, how much he liked being able to help her. Usually by now he'd be itching for solitude, but he wasn't, because he's a pervert. Maybe the big girl had changed more than just the city. I read chapter 2 and my back hurts too much, so the criticism part. Alright, I summed up my thoughts together. So chapter 1. I don't really know how to feel about this one, to be honest. Apart from Lucky being an absolute pervert and hugging on to Sweet, I think that a little contrast is pretty good. Lucky's like, I'm an alone dog, I don't need other people's help. And Sweet's like, I need other people's help. I'm a swift dog, I want to go in the wild, and Lucky's the complete opposite. Though, I could already guess that Lucky's gonna be like, maybe we should separate, or, we need to stick together, and Sweet's gonna be like, no, I want to go home, and just leave him. That's like all that I can see that can reasonably happen. Or, he keeps her by and she gets mad and she ends up attacking him, or, they become rivals or something. But I truly believe she's just gonna leave. She has no reason to stay with this perverted idiot. Really though, he's disgusting. I don't like Lucky. Sweet 2026, I think she's cool. Alright. Maybe for if they were to change something, I think Sweet should have been the injured one. She got 2 of her paws, completely messed up. She can't really run that fast. That way they have a reason to stick together. So they, have more conflict. They work things out. Rather than Lucky just gonna end up being like, I want you to stay, and then she's gonna leave. Though there's nothing more to add than that. I've only read, the prologue in chapter 1. I hope you guys like this. On side tangent. Sorry I don't upload too much, and sorry the quality's never the best. I don't have too much to give, but, you know, I hope you guys liked it. All two of you. All right, have a good day now. Bye-bye.